Good morning. Yes, it's morning, not my time of the day, generally speaking. I'm a nocturnal to the core. But this topic for episode 4 woke me, and I have found as a writer, those of you who read my blog, as a writer, if I don't either jot down the topic when it comes through the ticker, it's gone. And no effort will retrieve it. In fact, right now, my dear friend Charles is speaking at Chautauqua Institution, or preparing to, in the Hall of Philosophy, and I will miss it because of this. If I were 32, I might be on my way to Chautauqua, figuring I could do this later. But no, at this point in life, one realizes that one must do it now. My grandmother always said that, and there was a little plaque, a little square plaque with green script. Do it now. So here we are. If you're with me, thank you. This topic I had thought would be addiction and grief. But it might be lessons and plans, and then addiction and grief will kind of be absorbed, or it'll be like a meta message. Maybe not, I don't know. I'll just keep talking, because what you need to know is that these episodes are extemporaneous. I do not outline them. I do not sit with notes in front of me, which explains why sometimes, at least in the case of episode 3, they open with jarring syntax, tense irregularities, and bad grammar. Hopefully this one will benefit from the clarity of the beginning of the day, which, interestingly enough, in the life of a nocturnal, still works kind of the same as it does for morning people. The beginning of our day is still the most clear, and the end of our day is the most creative. At least that's true in my case. We just start later and we end later. So, in terms of lessons and plans and planning and learning lessons, that would be the heading, and the topic really is addiction and grief. I am in my pajamas and my old lady sweater, no makeup. Thank you for accepting me. And yes, when I look into the camera, I'm looking at myself. Because so much of this is about all of us. I might be talking to you when you're listening to me, but at the moment that I'm speaking to myself. Because I need to learn from my own lessons. The first time I ever went to an AA or Al-Anon meeting, and for those of you who might not know what those are, AA stands for Alcoholics Anonymous, and Al-Anon is a group, a subgroup that was formed principally by and for relatives and friends of addicts. In 1991, I met the first recovering addict I would know in my life. And that's actually not true. I didn't meet him that year, but we entered into a relationship that year. We had worked together several years prior, almost a decade prior. Always liked each other, you know. But we met up and established a relationship in '91. And through that man, who taught me so much, I attended my first AA and Al-Anon meeting. Over the past 2.5 years, I have sporadically returned. And I drew some conclusions about the process of addiction and the role of these organizations for myself, which I would like to share, along with some ruminations on grief. The first time I attended one of these meetings, I was fairly secure emotionally in my role as an attendee. I was in love with the man, and he had introduced me to a system that was restoring his life, which it did. My experience in the past 2.5 years has been very different, because in the past 2.5 years, I have been in the midst of an addictive relationship in which both of us expressed active addictions. I'm not going to betray my loved one and tell you about his. I'm going to talk about my own. I'm a process addict. I become addicted to addicts. And I actually do have a sugar addiction, which has become worse over the past 2.5 years. I am addicted to addicts. I get into relationships with addicts, either recovering or active, and I stay. I stay and stay and stay. See these hands? These hands are professional hands. I'm a pianist. I play the cello professionally as well. I draw. I make visual art. These hands are the expression of everything about me. And if you look really closely, you won't see the suction cups on the tips of my fingers, but they're there. I am tenacious. I will stick to you like Gorilla Glue, and I won't let go. I don't know why, particularly. I think I do. And this episode 4 is going to attempt to address that. I think at this point in my life, now that I am as old as I am, and if you want to know how old I am, all you have to do is look it up. You'll find it at People Finder, in Telius, and one of those, one of those tracking packages. I don't come with a tracking number, but you'll find me. At this point in my life, I have been through grief about as many times as most women have given birth. And it's kind of like the roller coaster. you get on the ride the first time with no preconceived, well, you'll have preconceived notions, but those are either dispelled or reinforced once you experience the roller coaster. But once you have, then you know, and you make your decisions thereafter based on that experience. I've been down the road of grief more times than I am interested in returning to. How's that for a badly constructed sentence? See, when you write, you can edit, but not when you're speaking into the camera. Grief, addiction. It might be that I stick to you and stick to relationships with addicts because I fear the grieving process and what it does to me emotionally and how it affects my professional life. That might be part of it. The other part is, of course, more familiar to those of you who already understand what I'm talking about today. I'm too busy trying to fix the problem. "25 years in public education, most of those spent with young children, habits form. The biggest one being identifying the problem in the child and being devoted to solving that problem for and with the child, because that's your charge. That's why you are there. And if you're a teacher in the public schools and you're not doing that, you need to go interview for a different job. You don't belong there, in my opinion. So I get in, and then I'm addicted to the addict. And the addiction process works like this. You become governed. Every move you make, every thought, every action is dictated by that process. You are going to spend your day devoted to the cause of the needs of the other person as you perceive them to be. You're going to either help them get through that day, view their biggest issues as expressed, and figure out how to provide practical solutions. And then you impose those on the addict. You buy things, you do things, you show up. You show up unannounced, you show up uninvited. You get called out for that, but you'll do it again. You'll say, "I'm just here because," and then it's difficult to leave once you're there. You physically cannot leave. You'll stay, because if you leave, you give up control over the outcome. And while you're there, you believe that you can control at least a small outcome of a situation which you largely are responsible for creating. Because once you arrive on scene, you are in the process of creating a scene over which then you have control. Because the addict is out of control, and you are too. So somebody has to regain control. And you believe in your altered state that you can control the addict's outcome, and while you're in the midst of doing that, you're also controlling your own.